God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good.
Trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Strike a blow, but we will receive them, and through our pain, we will make them see their injustice, and it will hurt, as all fighting hurts. But we cannot lose. We cannot. They may torture my body, break my bones, even kill me. Then they will have my dead body, not my opiates.
Forgive me, but you must understand that His Majesty's government and the British people repudiate both the massacre and the philosophy that prompted it. Now, what I would like to do is to come to some compromise over the new
If you would excuse me, Your Excellency, it is our view that matters have gone beyond legislation. We think it is time you recognized that you are masters in someone else's home. Despite the best intentions of the best of you, you must, in the nature of things, humiliate us to control us. General Dyer is but an extreme example of the principle. It is time you left.
With respect, Mr. Gandhi, without British administration, this country would be reduced to chaos.
Mr. Kinnock, I beg you to accept that there is no people on earth who would not prefer their own bad government to the good government of an alien power.
But yes, sir, India is British. We're hardly an alien power.
Mr. Gandhi, even if His Majesty could waive all other considerations, he has a duty to the millions of his Muslim subjects who are a minority in this realm, and experience suggests that his troops and his administration are essential in order to secure the peace.
All nations contain religious minorities. Like other countries, ours will have its problems. But they will be ours, not yours.
How do you propose to make them yours? You don't think we're just going to walk out of India?
Yes. In the end, you will walk out. Because 100,000 Englishmen simply cannot control 350 million Indians if those Indians refuse to cooperate. And that is what we intend to achieve. Peaceful, non-violent, non-cooperation. Till you yourself see the wisdom of leaving, Your Excellency.
Brother, Babu is already late for prayers.
Oh, God. The object of this massive tribute died as he had always lived. A private man, without wealth, without property, without official title or office. Mahatma Gandhi was not the commander of armies, nor a ruler of vast lands. He could not boast any scientific achievement or artistic gift. Yet men, governments, dignitaries from all over the world have joined hands today to pay homage to this little brown man in the loincloth who led his country to freedom. In the words of General George C. Marshall, the American Secretary of State, Mahatma Gandhi has become the spokesman for the conscience of all mankind. He was a man who made humility and simple truth more powerful than empires. And Albert Einstein added, generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this, ever in flesh and blood, walked upon this earth.
When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end they always fall. Think of it. Always.
Ist das eigene Volk. Und für dieses Volk und dieses Volk wollen wir ringen und wollen wir kämpfen und niemals erlahmen und niemals ermüden und niemals verzagen und niemals verzweifeln. Es lebe unsere Bewegung, es lebe unser deutsches Volk.
The day the soldiers came, the people were gathered together. The men were taken to garages and barns. The women and children were led down this road, and they were driven into this church. Here, they heard the firing as their men were shot. Then they were killed too. A few weeks later, many of those who had done the killing were themselves dead in battle. They never rebuilt Oradour. Its ruins are a memorial. Its martyrdom stands for thousand upon thousand of other martyrdoms in Poland, in Russia, in Burma, China, in a world at war. In November 1938, a Jew shot a German diplomat in Paris. The Nazi leaders organized a reprisal. Synagogues were burned and Jewish shops looted all over Germany. On that crystal night, named for the smashed glass sparkling in the gutters, thousands of Jews were thrown into concentration camps. January 1939. Hitler threatens a new solution to the Jewish problem. If world Jewry drags Germany into another war, that will be the end of the Jews in Europe. Czechoslovakia was no lost German province, but an independent nation, allied to Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. Within its northern border lived the Sudeten Germans. Hitler incited this minority, which had never been part of Germany, to demand union with the Reich. Europe prepared for war. The Sudetenland was easily digested. The next course could be taken fast. The shrunken Czech lands and Slovakia lay helpless before him. He struck on March the 15th, 1939. The German troops reached Prague the same day. There was no resistance. The last democracy in Central Europe was wiped out. The Czechs would never trust the West again. The West trusted Hitler no more, and realized at last that only force would stop him. September the 1st, 1939. Germany attacks Poland. Adolf Hitler ignores Britain and France, which had promised to fight for Poland. Sunday, September the 3rd. The British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain broadcasts.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
On May the 10th, 1940, without a declaration of war, Germany struck against neutral Holland. Paratroopers and panzers overpowered the Dutch peacetime army with its obsolete weapons. Using Holland's excellent roads, Hitler's columns raced across the flat countryside before the Allies could come to the rescue. At lunchtime, on May the 14th, 50 Heinkels attacked the port of Rotterdam. In 15 minutes, they started fires which destroyed the city center and struck terror into the population. Rotterdam capitulated, and only a few hours later, Holland decided to surrender to save other cities from a similar fate. That night, as Rotterdam blazed, the Dutch people were leaderless. The Queen, with her cabinet, had escaped to Britain to carry on the government in exile. Faced with the prospect of Nazi rule, more than 300 Dutchmen, mainly Jews, preferred to commit suicide. People were stunned, bewildered, fearful. All Jews were dismissed from public office. The Germans began to segregate Jews from other Dutchmen. They were banned from cafes and bars. In Amsterdam, black-shirted NSB men marched into a working-class area, pulled Jews out of pubs and beat them up in the streets. Jewish self-defense groups fought back. A Dutch Nazi was killed, a Gestapo man injured. As a reprisal, the Germans snatched 400 young Jews at random off the street, beat them up, and sent them off to Mauthausen, already known to be a death camp. A communist street cleaner, Piet Nak, following his party's instructions, stood up in the street and urged Amsterdammers to protest. Slowly, resistance was organized. Weapons and explosives for sabotage. An underground press printed and distributed at terrible risk. The few thousand men in resistance groups became Holland's conscience. The Germans were now putting into effect their plan to destroy all the Jews in Europe. The local population had first to be won over to cooperation, or at least to acquiescence. There were 140,000 Jews in Holland. In May 1942, they were ordered to wear the Yellow Star of David. By that autumn, they were being rounded up and on their way to concentration camps. Loads of Jews in goods wagons arrived at transit camps at Vught and Westerbork. Then they were sent east, supposedly to be resettled. In fact, to be gassed and cremated in Sobibor and Auschwitz. Of Holland's 140,000 Jews, 105,000 perished. The resistance called for strikes and sabotage. Railwaymen and police, under German control, did not respond. The trains ran on time.
They received us with open arms. This will be the haven. You are in the free country. You are in the free country.
pogrom.
June 1941. Germany attacks Russia. SS shocked troops in the first wave. Another racial war. More resettlement, mass deportations, forced emigrations. War against subhumans, against Slavs, and against Jews. Millions of Jews.
We found a round figure of 3 million Jews in Poland, and then immediately after that came the Russian campaign, and we found another 5 million Jews in Russia. How on earth should we manage to emigrate this 8 million by using these long and tiresome official methods? Now, with the war, we were cut off. We had no way out.
To be rid of so many Jews. Only one alternative left: kill them all. The job was begun by SS execution squads, Einsatzgruppen. But shooting was messy, distressing, inefficient. So vast an undertaking required careful planning. At Wannsee, in January 1942, Himmler's deputy, Heydrich, convened a conference. Senior civil servants attended from various departments of state. There were representatives of the Ministries of Justice and of Transport. Formal minutes were kept, and lists of Jews, country by country. In Poland, over 2 million. In Norway, 1,300. England, 330,000. Russia, 5 million. Grand total, over 11 million. Eichmann, with his experience in transportation, was appointed permanent administrator for this final solution of the Jewish problem. It had been decided that all the Jews in Europe were to be gassed. All occupied Europe had a concentration camp system based on the model camp Dachau. The camps were not only an instrument of terror, they were an important factor in war production, each with its cluster of labor camps attached. Now, they were also to be the means of the final solution. In the occupied East, new camps were specially built, and old ones equipped with new industrial capacity. They were to be machines to kill human beings by the million, utilize the byproducts, dispose of the waste. The camps were sited on railway routes to facilitate transportation. Eichmann chartered rolling stock from the state railways. The biggest camp of all was built astride the main railway line from Krakow to Vienna, in the outskirts of the Polish town of Auschwitz. In summer 1942, Himmler visited Auschwitz to inspect progress, to see for himself how things were getting on. Work was underway. Manufacturers' tenders had been called for, choices made. Plans and architects' drawings for the new combined gas chambers and crematoriums were ready for inspection, with their carefully designed chimneys and specially patented furnaces. Outside, construction workers, slave laborers, were striving to keep to their schedules in the warm summer weather. The gassing would be done with cans of poisoned pellets developed from a commercial pesticide, Zyklon B. The pellets were shaken through a roof grill. Exposed to the air, they gave off cyanide gas. In the occupied territories, the roundups began.
He hath disgraced me. Laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies, scorned my nation. What's his reason? I am a Jew. That's not a Jew. Hands. It's not a Jew eyes. Organs, dimensions, senses, affections. Fed with the same food, heard with the same weapons. subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same summer and winter. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge?
In solcher Art ist Lüster über sie und Leben meinen
יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי ולמיו. יזבח וישתבח ויתפואר ויתרומן, ויתנשא ויתהדר וישהלל וישהלל, שמי דקדשה בריחו. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Se crolla su me. Sto mondo rotondo se crolla su me. Mi trafigge il vento. Mi trafigge il vento. È vecchio, è nuovo, è qua, è lontano, noto, è estraneo, è tu, è tutto, amor d'universo. Ti copra sto cielo se cade, ti copra sto cielo se cade. Sto mondo rotondo se crolla su me. Sto mondo rotondo se crolla su me. Mi trafigge il vento. Mi trafigge il vento.
By day, the American bomber fleets ranged over the Reich. At night came the British. In the shelters, the people waited for dawn and wondered if their cities would still be there.
When we fed the first bombs, we were shocked. We saw all the sky lighted up from the fire. It was an enormous and dreadful sight. We were very angry when we saw that so many residential areas were destroyed. There were so few men left that everybody who had the strength was firefighting.
One by one, the German cities were incinerated by firestorms. 10 days' raids on Hamburg left 40,000 dead. Goebbels noted, the people in the West are gradually beginning to lose courage. Hell like that is hard to bear.
I think that the bombing hadn't the effect one would have thought. It had the effect of bringing people together. If you were all under the same bombs, it didn't really matter whether your neighbor was a Nazi or what they were.
To avoid seeing the ruins, Hitler's rare visits to Berlin were made by night. And yet, banners were ordered for his birthday. They read, "Our walls have broken, but not our hearts."
Hitler lost more and more his sense of reality. He never had the will. He must see with his own eyes what the war was. We had no information from outside, and so I had the feeling to live in a monastery, in a concentration camp. One of the generals once said, "I feel like a concentration camp. We are included, and we all use the same phrases. We are all thinking the same. We are all hearing the same. We are all led in our thoughts and our feelings by Hitler. We all were playing on a play, each his role, and he was the only one who knew the script. He made us all do our play and speak our text. Nobody else knew how it would end.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Force and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command. The German war is therefore at an end.
The world realized, and the Germans realized, that this was the turning point. This was a tragedy which could not be hidden. And Stalingrad did not come alone. A week before the city fell, the Germans learned that the Allies would demand unconditional surrender. There was then to be no mercy for the Germans. Nazi and non-Nazi both lost some illusions and drew a little closer together. The escape hatches had been bolted. This was to be a total war, fought to the finish. Remember the day. In the Second World War she started, Germany lost nearly 5 million dead. 2.5 million were killed in action. 1.5 million died in Russian prison camps. 500,000 German civilians died in Allied bombing raids. Another 500,000 at the war's end. Remember the dead and the scarred survivors. In the Second World War, 2.5 million Japanese died, among them 500,000 civilians. Japanese fighting men fought to the death. Nearly 20 Japanese soldiers were killed for every one wounded or maimed. Fought to the death. Nearly 20 Japanese soldiers were killed for every one wounded or maimed. Remember the dead. In the Second World War, America was not invaded or even bombed. But the United States lost 300,000 fighting men killed in action, far from home. Remember the Russian dead. In the Second World War, the Soviet Union, already bled by Stalin's terror, lost 20 million dead. Millions in action on Russian soil. The bloody defeats of 41 and 42. The bloody victories of 43 and 45. And millions of prisoners of war died in German hands, deprived of food, clothing, shelter. For these prisoners, no escape. About 1 million were shot. And millions of Russian civilians died from shooting, bombing, shelling, forced winter marches, engineered starvation. 20th century total war. Remember the Russian dead, the 20 million. Soldiers, remember the dead. Remember all the others. 15 million Chinese died in the Second World War, most from starvation. And in occupied Europe, more than 1.5 million Yugoslavs died, for a country that never stopped fighting. And 3 million Poles, and more than 5 million Jews. And over 500,000 Frenchmen and women, many in the resistance. And brave men and women in Norway, and Holland, and Denmark, and Belgium. And hundreds of thousands in Czechoslovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and over 300,000 Greeks. and 500,000 Italians in a country that was fought over and fought on both sides, and Spaniards in Russia and Indians in Burma. Remember them all. 55 million dead. I did not know death had undone so many. Mothers and daughters, fathers and sons. At the village of Oradour-sur-Glane, the day the soldiers came, they killed more than 600 men, women, and children. Remember.